The European Union, or EU, has responded to the military junta's takeover of Niger with forceful measures. About 3 months after the coup, on Monday, October 23rd, the European Union Council said that sanctions would be imposed on people and institutions that, quote, endangered Niger's security, stability, and peace. This action represents an important first step toward creating a structure that will provide the EU the right to apply penalties. The EU Council statement made it clear that anyone found guilty of undermining Niger's democratic system, rule of law, or constitutional order would face serious consequences. There would be repercussions for those found guilty of breaching or misusing human rights. Travel restrictions, asset freezes, and other fines are among the range of consequences, and limitations on financial assistance for the people and organizations under sanctions. But a relevant question is, are these sanctions really imposed because of the disruption of democracy, the rule of law, and the Constitution? Or are they imposed because the Nigerian people's tranquility is in danger? Later in the movie, this question will be discussed and resolved in detail. The head of EU foreign policy, Joseph Borrell, has underlined that the EU backs ECOWAS's initiatives in West Africa. He made it quite evident that military takeovers are expensive. The West African Monetary and Economic Union and ECOWAS have previously imposed sanctions on Niger, and the European Union is now taking the same stand. Colonel Major Amadou Abdramane, a Junta member, addressed on national television on August 13th. He stated, "The transitional authorities of Niger express regret for some members of the international community for their lack of empathy towards the people of Niger, who have been severely affected by the illegal, cruel, and dehumanizing sanctions imposed by ECOWAS. These sanctions have even caused the country to lose access to essential supplies of electricity, pharmaceuticals, and basic foods. All business dealings with Niger were suspended in August after the ECOWAS imposed sanctions. State assets were placed under lockdown in the regional central bank, while commercial banks also held state and state-owned firm assets under lockdown. Regional development banks also stopped providing any financial support. Niger's ability to make debt payments may be hampered by these strict financial penalties, which could result in a default. The regional central bank canceled a scheduled bond sale in the West African regional debt market worth 30 billion CFA francs, or $51 million, which further worsened the impact of these restrictions on Niger's economy. Niger's aim to raise $834 million, or $490 billion CFA francs, from the regional debt market in 2023 was blocked by this cancellation. Additionally, as a result of the sanctions, Niger's neighbor Nigeria shut off its electrical supply, which was a serious setback because Nigerian electricity supplied 70% of Niger's power. Furthermore, Ivory Coast halted the import and export of Nigerian goods, exacerbating the nation's economic woes. Due to operational hazards resulting from the circumstances, the West African Regional Central Bank, or BCEO, took preventive action by closing its operations in Niger. With President Mohamed Bazum of Niger still in secret junta captivity, these events have left the country's economy in a complex and difficult state, generating grave concerns about the country's financial stability and future. It is possible that these penalties will be applied in order to ensure his release. Since the coup on July 26th, President Bazum has been detained, and his release has been the subject of numerous diplomatic petitions. Like leaders in Burkina Faso and neighboring Mali, Bazum's downfall was partly brought on by the rising unrest brought on by an Islamist insurgency that has killed thousands of people in the area. The army asserted that it would manage this situation better than a civilian. According to the junta, Bazum and his family had intended to drive to the outskirts of the capital, Niamey, and then take a helicopter to nearby Nigeria, with the assistance of cronies in the security services. Bazum's attorneys, however, angrily refuted these accusations, claiming that the junta had made them up. They added that Bazum and his family were kept from accessing outside counsel in the outside world and that the junta had to produce documentation attesting to the president, his spouse, and their son's safety. Significant concerns have been raised by Mohamed Bazum's unclear condition, not the least of which being that the president's family is ill-equipped to offer legal counsel, including those of his wife and son, as well as those of French President Emmanuel Macron, who has demanded his immediate release. Bazum has refused to tender his resignation in the face of difficulties, and on September 18th, he filed an appeal with West African courts demanding his release and the restoration of the Nigerian constitution. Before we go any further, if you think this video is interesting, kindly support us by giving it a like, sharing it, and becoming a channel subscriber. That being stated, let's move forward. The Nigerian administration is about to face significant pressure from the EU sanctions. The EU is Niger's largest donor, and the assistance suspension will make it more difficult for the government to provide its people with basic services. The asset freeze and travel ban will also make it more difficult for the junta to do business or attract foreign investment. Since President Bazum is being held in custody by the junta, his future is still unknown. Although the junta has not revealed its intentions regarding him, it is possible that he will be put on trial or sent into exile. Although the course of events in Niger is unpredictable, the sanctions imposed by the EU make it clear that the world community opposes the toppling of a democratically elected government. It is noteworthy that following the successful coup in August, the European Union promptly halted financial support and security cooperation with Niger. According to its website, the EU had set aside €503 million, or $554 million, from their budget for a number of development projects in Niger between 2021 and 2024. A number of other Western nations have also punished Niger in response to the military takeover, in addition to the sanctions imposed by the European Union. A major player, France, quickly halted fiscal support and development aid of about €120 million or $130 million in 2022, with projections of a marginally higher amount for the present year. Commanded by the new military leadership, France, which had about 1,500 soldiers in Niger, removed the majority of its men. The United States is a major provider of security and humanitarian aid, halted aid initiatives to Niger after the military took control, worth more than $100 million. In the event that the junta fails to restore the elected government, the United States has threatened to halt all assistance. The U.S. has already contributed close to $138 million in humanitarian aid during the 2023 fiscal year. From 2 sites, the nation has about 1,100 troops in Niger. In addition, the World Bank stopped giving money to Niger, with the exception of collaborations with the private sector, which will proceed with caution. With a $4.5 billion portfolio, Niger has one of the biggest World Bank portfolios in Africa. In addition, the bank provided the nation with direct budget help totaling $600 million between 2022 and 2023. The universal condemnation of the military coup in Niger and the pressing call for the restoration of constitutional rule are highlighted by this coordinated response from Western countries and international organizations. Going back to the first point in the video, are sanctions being imposed because the military junta is threatening the peace of the Nigerian people? Or are they being imposed because the constitution, the rule of law, and democracy are being disrupted? Without a doubt, the answer is no. The European Union's sanctions against the juntas in Nigeria are not based on a sincere concern for the welfare of the populace or for democratic principles. Rather, the acts of the EU are seen as a result of the president-elect's function as a puppet advancing their agenda. The EU had unfettered access to Niger's resources throughout this president's administration, which made it easier for them to abuse the country. Nevertheless, this pattern of exploitation has been upset by the installation of a military government, as saw in Mali and Burkina Faso. Military juntas are viewed as resistant to European exploitation, since they are not supported by European superpowers and are instead motivated by the desire to better their nation and the lives of their citizens. restoring their preferred leader is seen as a move by the EU to regain their freedom to take advantage of Niger. This is consistent with remarks made by African authorities, such the Minister of State of Burkina Faso at the 78th UN General Assembly, who claimed that Western forces are in Africa not to maintain peace but rather to further their own self-interests. Furthermore, Mamadi Doumbouya, the head of Guinea's armed forces, claimed that the West had a major role in the continent of Africa's democratic collapse. What are your thoughts on these penalties? And do you believe that they will be sufficient to compel the junta to alter its strategy in Niger? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for observing. Kindly subscribe to the channel, like it, and share it.